All right, so let's talk Santa. I mean, we all know him, right? Jolly white beard, red suit. But
Yeah.
have you ever stopped and thought why red? It's just one of those things we kind of accept.
Yeah, it really is. It's fascinating how these symbols just, they become so ingrained in our culture. We see red and boom, it's Santa.
It's automatic.
So?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what we're diving into today. We've got this article. It's from spiriton.hu. It's a Hungarian spiritual website. And they're tackling 3 big mysteries about Santa's origins. So get ready for some serious holiday history.
Ooh, I love it. I'm all for unraveling these kinds of mysteries.
Okay, mystery number 1 throws us a curveball right away.
Yeah.
It claims that Santa wasn't originally about presents at all.
Yeah, that's right. If we're going to understand Santa, we got to go back to his roots. We're talking about the historical St. Nicholas, a 4th century bishop known for just incredible generosity.
Okay, so what kind of generosity are we talking about? Was he handing out candy canes in the town square?
Think bigger. We're talking life-changing acts of generosity. One of the most famous stories about St. Nicholas involves him secretly providing dowries for 3 young women. You know how today we worry about student loans? Well, imagine a debt. That could force you into a life you didn't choose. That was the reality for many women back then. If they didn't have a dowry, their options were severely limited.
Wow. That puts things in perspective. So St. Nicholas was stepping in and altering the course of these women's lives. I mean, that's pretty heroic.
Absolutely. And it's this act of providing dowries. That's one of the key links to this whole gift-giving tradition we associate with Santa Claus.
All right, that makes sense. But where does the whole red suit, flying reindeer, North Pole thing come in? It doesn't sound very 4th century.
It's not. And this is where things get really interesting. The story of St. Nicholas. It starts to intertwine with elements from other traditions, like Norse mythology, for example. Have you ever heard of Odin, the Norse god?
Of course. He's the one who rides an 8-legged horse, right?
That's him. And what's interesting is that Odin also had this gift-giving aspect to his mythology. It's these kind of unexpected connections that end up shaping cultural figures over time.
So Santa's got a bit of Norse god in his DNA. I did not see that coming.
It's all about the blend, right? And that blending process just continues as we move on to mystery number 2, which dives into some pretty bold claims, especially in Hungary. The question is Santa Claus a communist invention?
Oh, now that's a headline grabber. I know the article mentions that this is a common belief in Hungary, where they have Telepo, which means Grandfather Frost, and he was heavily promoted during the Soviet era.
Right. And it's easy to see how that connection might arise, especially if you live through that period. But here's where the historical digging gets really important. The name Telepo actually appears in Hungarian literature way before the communist era, as far back as the 19th century.
Just not some Soviet plot to replace Christmas.
The history is more nuanced than that. While the Soviet Union definitely used Telepo as part of their holiday celebrations, the figure itself has much deeper roots in Hungarian culture.
It's like they tried to co-opt the tradition, but Telepo was already a familiar character. I'm sensing a theme here. It seems like Santa has a knack for absorbing elements from different cultures and time periods.
Exactly. It makes you realize that even figures as globally recognized as Santa Claus have these complex and layered backstories.
Speaking of layers, let's move on to mystery number 3, the Coca-Cola connection. This one's always a hot topic.
Yeah.
Did Coca-Cola invent Santa?
Well, let's be honest. It's tempting to believe that one iconic ad campaign shaped our entire perception of Santa Claus.
Right. The red suit, the jolly demeanor. It all screams Coca-Cola, but I have a feeling it's not that straightforward.
You're right. It's more complicated. While Coca-Cola's 1930s ad campaign definitely popularized a particular image of Santa, he was already being depicted in red before that, remember. St. Nicholas was a bishop, and while he likely wore purple, red was also associated with saints.
So the red suit wasn't a sudden invention. It was more of a gradual evolution, with Coca-Cola coming in and really cementing that image in our minds.
Precisely. And it's important to remember that visual imagery plays a huge role in shaping our cultural understanding. Coca-Cola took an existing idea and amplified it, making Santa even jollier, even more larger than life.
It's amazing to think that one ad campaign could have such a lasting impact.
It speaks to the power of marketing and how easily certain images become embedded in our collective consciousness.
All right, so we've gone from a 4th century bishop to a Norse god, from communist propaganda to globalized marketing. And it's only part 1. What else is in store for us on this Santa Claus deep dive?
It's interesting, isn't it, how we just accept these cultural figures and never really question, where they came from.
It's true. Santa's always just been Santa, right? But as we've been uncovering, like his look, his story, it's all this blend of history and mythology and marketing.
Exactly. That's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're peeling back the layers on something we thought we knew and revealing this incredible tapestry of influences.
Okay, so we've tackled the red suit. But there's another Santa staple that always kind of intrigued me. The whole naughty or nice list, where did that come from?
The judgment of Santa. That's a great question. And it actually ties back to those early traditions we were discussing. Remember how we talked about the Norse god Odin?
Right, the eight-legged horse guy.
That's him. Well, Odin had this dual nature. He represented both generosity and punishment.
So he was like the good cop, bad cop of Norse mythology.
In a way, yes. And this duality seems to have found its way into the developing Santa Claus tradition. Over time, the idea emerged that Santa kept track of children's behavior throughout the year, rewarding the good and, well, not rewarding the bad.
So Santa inherited a bit of a judgmental streak from his Norse ancestor.
I think it's more about balance. Even in early depictions of St. Nicholas, there was often this companion figure, sometimes a devil, sometimes a wild man, who is actually responsible for punishing the naughty children.
Wait, Santa had a sidekick who was basically the enforcer. Okay, that's a little creepy.
It definitely adds a darker layer to the story, but over time, that companion figure kind of faded into the background, and the focus shifted more towards Santa's role as this benevolent gift giver.
I guess even back then, people needed a little extra incentive to be good. So the naughty or nice concept evolved from this older idea of rewarding good behavior and punishing bad behavior. But here's a question. How does Santa even know who's been naughty or nice? Does he have like a magical surveillance system?
That's where the magic of belief comes in, right? But practically speaking, many cultures had traditions of children writing letters to Santa, confessing their misdeeds, and promising to do better.
So it was a sort of self-reporting system. I could see how that would make things easier for Santa and his companion.
Exactly. It's this fascinating blend of practical considerations and the power of storytelling.
Okay, so we've got the origins of the naughty or nice list down. But there's another Santa mystery that's always bugged me. How does he travel the entire world in one night? Reindeer pulling a sleigh? That's impressive, even for a magical being.
It's a question that has captivated imaginations for centuries. And like many aspects of the Santa Claus story, there are these historical and cultural threads that help us kind of understand how this imagery came to be.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's unravel the mystery of Santa's super speedy mode of transport.
Well, for starters, reindeer are native to the Arctic regions, which have long been associated with winter and snow. So it makes sense that they would be linked to a figure who delivers gifts during the winter holidays.
That's logical. Reindeer are practically built for winter travel.
Yeah.
But what about the flying part? Where did that come from? Was there some ancient reindeer breed with hidden wings?
I'm afraid there's no fossil evidence of winged reindeer. But there are a few theories about how they earned their flight credentials. Some believe it's connected to the Norse god Thor, who rode a chariot pulled by flying goats.
Oh, so Santa's borrowing travel tips from other mythologies.
It's possible. Another theory suggests that the flying reindeer are a more recent invention, influenced by stories and illustrations. That depicted Santa's sleigh soaring through the night sky. Think about those classic images of Santa, silhouetted against a full moon, reindeer leaping from rooftop to rooftop.
I could definitely picture those. It's such a magical image.
Exactly, and those images have shaped our understanding of Santa's travel methods just as much as any historical origin story.
So while the exact origins of the flying reindeer remain a bit of a mystery, it's clear they're like a vital part of the Santa Claus mythos.
Absolutely. They add a sense of wonder and enchantment, and let's be honest, a whole lot of logistical convenience to the Santa Claus story.
Okay, so we've covered saints, Norse gods, cultural influences from across Europe, even a dash of marketing genius. What else have we got in store for us? As we continue this deep dive into the world of Santa Claus, welcome back to the Deep Dive. You know, we've been on quite a journey with Santa Claus, from his humble beginnings as a generous bishop to his high-flying adventures with magical reindeer.
It really is amazing how one figure can hold so much. I mean, history, mythology, cultural significance, it really speaks to the power of storytelling, right? And how traditions can evolve over time.
Absolutely. And speaking of evolving traditions, there's one aspect of Santa's world we haven't really touched on yet, the whole Santa's workshop operation.
Yeah.
You know, elves, toys, North Pole, where did that come from?
Yeah. That's a piece of the puzzle that kind of emerged a bit later than some of the other elements we've discussed. This idea of Santa having a workshop full of elves diligently making toys, it really gained traction in the 19th century, particularly in the United States.
So is Santa's workshop an American invention?
Not entirely. European folklore already had tales of magical beings, helping with various tasks and things. But the American version really solidified the image we have today. Santa's workshop is this: bustling hub of toy production, complete with this hierarchy of elves, each with their own specialized skills.
I can practically hear it now. The hammering, the sawing, the elves working tirelessly to get all the toys ready for Christmas Eve.
It is a very charming image, and it's interesting to think about the context of when this image emerged. I mean, the 19th century was a time of rapid industrialization, right? Mass production. So, in a way, Santa's workshop became this fantastical reflection of the changing world around it.
It's like even Santa's story gets swept up in the currents of history.
Exactly. And that's what makes these deep dives so rewarding, uncovering these unexpected connections and seeing how cultural shifts leave their mark on even the most cherished traditions.
Okay, so we've covered the red suit, the naughty or nice list, the flying reindeer, and the workshop full of elves. Is there anything else we need to know about Santa? I mean, have we cracked the code?
Well, there's one last piece of the puzzle I think we should address: the North Pole. Why is Santa's workshop located at the top of the world?
You know, I never really thought about it. I've always just accepted that as part of the Santa lore.
Yeah.
But now that you mention it, it does seem like a rather remote and chilly location for a toy factory.
It does, doesn't it? But there are a few theories about how the North Pole became Santa's official address. Some believe it's simply because of the Arctic region's long association with winter and snow. It's a place that already feels magical and otherworldly.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like the North Pole is the ultimate winter wonderland.
Exactly. Another theory suggests that placing Santa's workshop at the North Pole was a way to position him in a neutral, international territory, accessible to children all over the world.
Ah, so it's a way to make Santa a truly global figure, not bound by any one country or culture.
Precisely. It adds to his mystique, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, the North Pole is this remote, almost mystical place, and it fuels our imagination, right? It makes Santa's whole operation even more intriguing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the origins of Santa Claus, what have we learned?
Well, for starters, we've learned that there's more to Santa Claus than meets the eye. He's not just a jolly old elf with a sack full of toys.
He's a figure who's absorbed centuries of history, mythology, cultural influences, a testament to the power of storytelling and how these traditions evolve.
We've seen how a 4th century bishop known for his generosity became intertwined with Norse gods, communist propaganda, even global marketing campaigns.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the stories we tell, the symbols we cherish, they all carry echoes of the past.
And by understanding those echoes, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the world around us, and maybe even see the magic in everyday things.
Beautifully said.
So the next time you see an image of Santa Claus, remember all those layers beneath the surface, the threads of history and culture that are woven together to create this beloved figure.
He's a symbol of so much, isn't he?
He is. Generosity, childhood wonder, the enduring power of storytelling. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Santa Claus.
It's been a pleasure. Happy holidays.